Healthy deconstruction, or the word deconstruction might sound weird. It might even sound destructive.
Right.
But the reality is it's a biblical process. And so today we're going to hop into more of the practical of what does healthy deconstruction look like.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Coil Coaching's podcast, Thriving One. We are so excited that you're joining us again today.
Yes.
We are going to be diving into our part 2 from our last podcast about healthy deconstruction. And we're excited to dive into that today. So
Yes.
it's part 2, and we're gonna just explore what that looks like, and continue that conversation between Matt and I. But I'm gonna turn this over to my hubby, Matt. He's gonna be
Let's do
leading
it.
the way.
All right. So good to be back with you guys again. Man, I am so excited about this topic because of what is behind this topic. Healthy deconstruction, or the word deconstruction might sound weird. It might even sound destructive.
Right.
But the reality is it's a biblical process. And so today we're going to hop into more of the practical of what does healthy deconstruction look like, how to do it per se.
Yeah.
And so this is what I'm passionate about.
Mhm.
Just supporting people and helping people step into their true nature, to the depths of communing with their creator,
Yeah.
to knowing themselves. So to start off, I just want to do a reminder. If you didn't listen to the last episode, make sure to
Yes.
go listen to that. But I want to kind of start off with a great definition of deconstruction that I found that I just want to set the table with again
Yeah,
on,
that's good.
what is deconstruction? It's a bit of a buzzword in the Christian world. It carries a lot of negativity. And so we're coming in with a really healthy version of understanding what it really means. And so the definition that I saw that I liked was this: deconstruction is a careful and deliberate examination of one's beliefs from the inside.
That's good.
It's about coming to terms with what you believe outside of your inherited beliefs. So those that you grew up in your culture, in your family, in your church culture, in your school culture. Okay. So it's like recognizing the difference is, what are you going to carry? What kind of truth, what kind of love are you going to carry?
Yeah.
And how is it not matched up to what God says that it is from your external environment? And really, deconstruction, it's about growing into your faith, not out of your faith. And that's where a lot of the negative connotation has come from, related to deconstruction. Is a lot of people have been using it as people leaving the faith or leaving their connection to God and Christ. And so we're not talking about that. We are hitting on, what are we deconstructing from?
Yeah.
And kind of what I mentioned before is we're deconstructing from beliefs that don't work anymore, or beliefs that aren't helpful to connection, relationship, acceptance, and value, a value system. And so we're talking a lot about environments, from family environments to church culture environments to business and organizational environments, where one of the difficulties when environments get really big is they lose the natural connectivity of being known and experiencing and love. So it becomes more of a business experience in family and more specifically in church, and where we're created to be connected.
Yeah. And it's really also, I would say, like a limit, the limit, like it limits us from growing and maturing. Those beliefs, or maybe, it's not just church. Church is included because this is what we're going to be talking about, but also when you said family, friends, and relationships, and that's a whole nother set of podcast episodes,
Totally.
but it is really like setting yourself free from the systems that are limiting you from maturing and growing in your relationship with the Lord.
Right.
So, and that includes everything else, like including relationships. That's why deconstruction is quite painful and traumatizing for some people when they do it, because it really is like when you look at, like I see it this way, like when you look at your kitchen and you're like, I want a new kitchen, and you have a vision of like, wow, there must be more than this, like I have had this kitchen for 20 years.
Right.
And I would love to have new features, because things change and you're like, and so, but in order for you to get to that place, the vision that you have, like there must be more than this kitchen, and I want to
Yes.
add some features to it. Like there's a level of deconstruction that you need to do
Yeah.
with the current kitchen. And it's not that you don't love it, because sometimes you still love your old kitchen, but it's not, it's limiting you from doing what you want to do, knowing that there are other ways that you can grow into your cooking. I don't know, like it's just like it's like an example, but there's a level of deconstruction that happens during that time.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand what you're doing, then it can cause a lot of pain and trauma. And so that's why you need people and a vision,
Yeah.
So I'm probably jumping the gun here, but I'm really
No, it's all
excited.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that we were chatting about last time to lead into, what is healthy deconstruction is, as we're maturing and as we're growing as individuals, you're recognizing that the old operating system
Yeah.
doesn't work in the now. So the example I used in our last podcast was related to when I was single.
Yes.
And then when I got married, I had to change my operating system. It's not about just me anymore.
Yeah.
Now I have Lindsay that I'm thinking about. And so everything from our finances to how I live my life, to communicating honorably and respectfully, like one of the biggest changes for me that I had to deconstruct and reconstruct was asking Lindsay permission before I did something.
Yes.
So now I have someone in my life that I'm being respectful and considerate of.
That's a good word.
Especially since we have a child now.
Yeah.
Like we're not separate beings. We are one.
Yeah.
We do everything together. So we consider and we respect one another.
Yeah.
And so recognizing when you're in an environment or a relationship that doesn't function anymore within, I would say, healthy parameters, like how are you reconstructing to navigate through that?
Right.
So what is healthy deconstruction? So scripturally, the best word to describe what healthy deconstruction is, or what I've been talking about, is around the renewing of the mind. So, the buzzword today is deconstruction, but the old school word is the renewing of the mind.
Yeah.
And it's not just in the reality of the Word of God, but I'm renewing my mind. I'm rethinking and re-strategizing how I interact in a married relationship opposed to a singled one. So I want to read Romans 12:2 here really quickly, just to lead into what is the model of healthy deconstruction from Scripture.
Yeah.
So it says this: do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will.
That's good. That's good.
So two key factors here that that Scripture is mentioning is there's this transition, there's this deconstruction happening from the way we used to think in the patterns of the world. And when we received Christ and we took on his reality, and we're allowing ourselves to be renewed. And obviously, a lot of us, we know, we've grown up in the Christian environments, that the renewing mind has a lot to do with the reading of the word and getting God's reality and his truth within us. And what is God's will? Because that's what we're being renewed to. That's what we're deconstructing from and reconstructing to. And that reality is God's will is love, simplified.
Yeah.
In Matthew 22:36-40, it says this. Someone's asking Jesus about the greatest commandment. And it says, "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law or related to the Old Testament?" And Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart with all of your soul and with all of your mind.
Mm,
This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor
mhm.
as you love yourself.
Yeah, that's good.
All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. So,
Yeah.
as we're looking at the renewing the mind, renewing our
Mhm.
mind from the world's thinking. Okay.
Yeah.
And I like to sum it up in the world is fear driven, Christ
Mhm.
and God is love driven. To
Yeah.
really simplify, the will between the world and God's will.
Mhm.
And we're shifting from the world's reality of how
Yeah.
things should play out
Mhm.
to God's reality,
Yeah.
which is love.
That's really good.
Mm.
And as you were talking, like one of the things that we do, like I feel like that a call that Matt and I have is reframing,
Mm-hmm.
the reframing part, like Matt and I don't just teach methods, like,
Right.
so when you're hearing us talk about healthy deconstruction and even this way of like, this is, some of the things that you can do and some of the things that you can look forward to when you are, going into deconstruction and how to do a healthy
Mm-hmm.
deconstruction. It's like methods are great, but I feel like our one of our biggest call is, we really teach frameworks,
Right.
and so that's why the renewing of the mind, the reframing of our mind brings so much transformation to our clients because of not just the method or the way that we do life with each other and with people, so,
Yeah.
and that's why love is such a great parameter or a great motivation when you are doing
Mm-hmm.
healthy deconstruction.
Yes.
Because when love is missing there, like there's something that we are ingrained, like the way God made us,
Mm-hmm.
we were made to receive love from him, and so therefore we can love him back with that same love and love our neighbors as we love ourselves. So it's kind of
Right.
like this whole, like, you know like really cool circle of life. Oh my
The
God.
circle of life.
It's not, I don't know how to describe it. But anyway, yeah.
No, it is,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Circular.
yes,
And
yes. So it's not
circle
just,
is about, it's not a line,
yeah,
point A to point B.
not linear.
It's very holistic. It's very
Yes.
continual,
Yes.
right?
Yes. We're continually renewing our mind, reframing our mind so we can be transformed. So whether it's from the
Yes.
world to here, the maturing of our love, because that's really what it is too. Like when you deconstruct in a healthy way,
Mm-hmm.
it is an invitation to mature in our love.
Yes.
The love that we're able to receive from God and the love that we're able to give back to him and to the people around us.
Right. Because that's the reality. It all boils down to love. Love
Yeah.
is a complicated and,
Mhm.
let's be honest, difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
But just like lifting weights, if you want to get stronger,
Yeah.
lifting weights, there has to be a tearing of the muscle.
Mhm.
There has to be a pressure
Yeah.
applied to expand your capacity, as
Yeah.
it were.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the thing about what moves people into deconstruction,
Mhm.
and maybe if I paint a bit of a picture of why this is a buzzword.
Yeah.
It's a buzzword because, in the negative sense, because people are not experiencing the reality of God's love in churches.
Yeah.
Now,
Yep.
hear me, it's not a blanket
Mhm.
statement, okay? I'm not talking against churches. I love church. I was a pastor for years, a
Yeah.
missionary. I go to a phenomenal church. We go
Yeah.
to a phenomenal church.
Yeah.
It's just about when you put two people together that are
Mhm.
dysfunctional, there's going to be
Yeah.
trauma. There's going to be
Mhm.
hurt, right? And
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
all in process.
Mhm.
But the reality is that in the mess of trying to do love, people get
Mhm.
hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
People say things
Mhm.
in a hurtful way. They do things in a hurtful way. There's reasons why, but I'm not going to get into that in this section. Go check
Or
out our
another one.
go check out
Yeah.
our why do I do a podcast? Why do people hurt people? Right.
Right. Yeah, we could. That's a good podcast. Yes.
But what I'm talking about here is people deconstruct because the reality is there's this model and this
Mhm.
awareness of what love is,
Mhm.
and we might not fully own it. and
Yeah.
or fully aware of it, but intrinsically,
Mm-hmm.
internally, we know somehow what
Mm-hmm.
love is and what love is not.
Yeah.
And when people encounter, say, environments or other
Mm-hmm.
people, and they don't experience love, then they get hurt,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And for a lot of ways, depending on where you're at in your maturing process, no matter what somebody does,
Mm-hmm.
the way that your
Yeah.
reality sees
Mm-hmm.
things based upon your past,
Yeah.
you're going to get hurt no matter what. So there's just like this, again, I think it's gonna be a totally good
Oh yeah,
podcast to do.
different.
Why
Why do
do
people
people
hurt
hurt
people?
people?
Yeah.
But to kind of jump back into
Well,
this
we're laughing. Okay, we're laughing because it's not because we've never done it. We're laughing
or
because we
experienced it,
experience it. Yeah.
it's just
But
like
just so you know.
it's so relevant. It's just like such a real thing. It's such a simplistic thing. While we're
Yeah.
out in the world, while we're out in relationship and doing our life,
Mm-hmm.
we are hardwired to need connection.
Yeah.
And so when those certain needs of connection aren't met internally, I'm making it a little bit more
Yeah.
scientific. We're aware of that.
Yeah.
And sometimes we try to get our needs met in unhealthy ways.
Mm-hmm.
And the maturing process, the pain of being hurt by someone is a pushing in a
Mm-hmm.
direction to resolve that.
Yeah.
If it's resolving it within yourself, or if it's a removing yourself from an environment that is just toxic in general, be it from a
Yes.
family
Yeah.
environment to an organizational environment. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that's required. I don't advocate leaving environments whenever someone hurts
Sure.
you,
Yes.
but there does come times where you have to realize, oh, for me to mature,
Mm-hmm.
being in a toxic environment won't help me. So I need to
Yeah.
mature so I
Yeah.
can either reinsert myself back into that environment, or I can find or create the environment
Mm-hmm.
of love, because that's
Yeah.
what we're called to.
Yeah.
We're called to create environments of love within
Mm-hmm.
us
Yeah.
and around us.
That's good.
And so when I think about healthy deconstruction, we're on a journey of trying to access the reality of love.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking for examples of it.
Yeah.
We're looking for examples.
Yeah.
And we think, and we rightfully should think, that it would be found in the church
Mm-hmm.
or in a Christian environment. But it's not always the case.
Yeah.
When I think about being in a relationship with somebody, and I realize that there's love really isn't being expressed
Mm-hmm.
mutually. So
Yeah.
be it through respect, be it through honoring,
Mm.
be it through care, be it through compassion, then I start to experience what I call trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever love is lacking from a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
trauma is being created.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I would call that, it could be verbal, it could be emotional. Sometimes in the extremes, it's physical.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the reality is we're looking for love. How do we step in
Mm-hmm.
to love? How do we
Yeah.
receive love? So
Yeah.
when we're deconstructing, maybe
Mm-hmm.
you've left an environment or a relationship and you're causing yourself to be like, why,
Yeah.
why, why was I hurt? Why did this happen?
Yeah.
Why did they treat me this way?
Oh,
Whenever you get
yeah.
hurt, normally you're going to go into blame mode,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're going to react, where love is a growing process of learning how to respond.
Yeah. That's good.
There's a huge difference between
Mm-hmm.
reacting and responding.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say if someone is not operating in love and it comes through in a hurtful way to you, the world will react. So if someone's
Yeah.
mean to you, you'll react and be mean back to them.
Mhm.
You'll self-protect.
Yeah.
And in some ways, at the very elementary level, that's okay for a season.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is God's inviting us on a
Yeah.
maturing journey
Yeah.
into love.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we grow, and this is a good litmus test or a test to
Mhm.
recognize kind of where you're at,
Yeah.
a gauge
Yeah.
is if someone's mean to you,
Mhm.
are you able to respond in a healthy way in love, not in a codependent way,
Yeah.
not in a narcissistic
Sure.
way, but actually in a well-balanced way in
Mhm.
love,
Yeah.
that you respond not according to how they're treating you, but you're
Mhm.
responding according to who you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
because that's where the ownership part comes in, is I'm growing in maturity, where I'm deconstructing and recognizing how an environment isn't healthy and it's not supporting love in my life. And also at a deeper level, and this takes a lot of maturity, is how am I deconstructing to how I treat others?
Yeah, that's
how
right.
I view others, how I'm connecting to God and recognizing what's going on in the confusion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any thoughts on that? Or?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, there's so much to be said about how to do it, but so I'm just going to share from just my experience, like not going to go into details, but there was a time in my life where a season in my life where it was just painful. I was depressed, I was traumatized, and I just was not wanting to live.
Yeah, totally.
There was a time where I'm like, gosh, like I should just go to heaven now. It's a lot easier, right?
You're right.
And when you're experiencing that much pain and trauma, and I may be speaking to a lot of you, whether it's like a relationship that you just got out of, a toxic relationship, with a person, an environment, be it your work, church, family, friend group and stuff, this stuff is real. Like when you're in it, you're like, you get to the place where I don't want to move on. And then you sit with that pain, and you're like, and I just want to like camp around this pain, and you create scenarios in your head, and whether they're true or not, like the pain is valid.
Yeah, to justify your pain and justify your experience.
But at the same time, like, you need to be able to have that one or two friend, the person that's for you, the person who is for you and not for the system. Because when you find that person who is for you, who loves you in your mess, in your deconstructing state, where the kitchen doesn't look like a kitchen anymore, and it just looks like a bunch of rubble, mess everywhere, right? And I could remember like sharing this with a good friend of mine, and I was like, I don't have hope anymore. Like not just in like church or family or friends, like no, in life in general. And I'm like, I don't have hope anymore. Like it just feels like I just want to die. Like I just want to go to a better place. And she said this to me, and I will never forget this. She said, like, it's okay. She didn't say like, oh, brush it off or something, all those tools, right? Brush it off, renew your mind or whatever at that moment. She just said like, I get it. I hear you. And in the meantime, when you don't have hope, you can borrow mine. Until you have hope again and you're able to walk in your healing. And it's found in Mark 2. Jesus healed a paralyzed man because of his friend's faith. The faith of his friends. So he was a guy who cannot literally do anything. He was paralyzed. But his friends pushed through the crowds, tore up the ceiling, and lowered him down so he could have an encounter with Jesus, because they believed for him enough. That if he could have just that touch, the real authentic touch from Jesus, then he probably will be healed. And so sometimes like a part of this deconstruction and how to do it healthily is that when you're not in a healthy state, find someone who would not just tell you what you want to hear, but what you need to hear, and will hold your hand along the way. And to love you. And that's why we're talking about love, like love for you. Not just like I'm trying to protect the system that was trying to hurt you and bring trauma and pain. And so if you can find that person, may it be like a counselor, a friend, like that would be like my 2 cents.
For sure.
In that
and
scenario.
it's interesting because a lot of the topics that we bring up is based upon our life experience, what we're sensing in the spirit of what's needed in this season globally, as we're touching people in all kinds of different countries, to the repetition of what we experience with our clients,
Yeah.
and helping them through that deconstruction process.
Mhm.
Somebody like Lindsay was describing,
Yeah.
to be with you. And
Yes.
that's the power of Christ's love when it's demonstrated in a responsive way.
Yeah.
Like what we do in Coil coaching through our programs and our one-on-ones with clients is we're doing the act of what I call support.
Yes.
We're
Yes.
being Christ in the midst of a difficult situation, a confusing situation, a stuck situation, and we're activating the reality of God, Emmanuel, God with
Yeah.
us, or love
Yeah.
with us. And you could be totally wrong,
Right.
but Christ, the only way that we will be able to see the other side or to make a transformation in our lives or in a relationship is that we allow his view and his reality. But it means that we have to humble ourselves.
Yes.
We have to
Absolutely.
embrace the deconstruction process and say,
Yes.
the way I've been acting, the way I allow myself to get into toxic relationships.
Yes.
Can I
Yes.
get a
Yes.
holler? Okay.
Yes.
All right. I know about it. I've done it in my own life. Codependent relationships. You were taught that from a young age, and it's a way you get your needs met. And so you keep getting in. If you keep finding yourself going from environment to environment, I want to say, stop.
Yeah.
Get some support.
Yeah.
Find the love and the safety of honesty without judgment.
Yeah.
Right.
So good.
One of the biggest things that's helped me in my own personal journey is seeking relationships that have a neutral involvement.
Yep.
Which means I'm not trying to stand up for an environment. I'm not trying to stand up for my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be right. I want it to be with.
Yeah.
I want to be with you in your journey. I want to
Yes.
reflect like a mirror. That's a lot of what we do in our sessions with clients, is being a mirror, an authentic mirror, not a judgmental or criticizing mirror, but an authentic mirror,
Yeah.
so that we can come to the grips of, what am I missing? Why do I keep ending up in toxic relationships, environments, limiting environments? It might not be that you're toxic, but you maybe as you're growing your leadership, you keep going into these lower level positions that limits you, and so you get stuck, you feel frustrated, and God's actually inviting you into a higher level of maturity to take a risk in a new space. Because here's the thing, and I've experienced in my own life, it's easy for us to get in, learn something, know it, coast, plateau, and feel like I can do this.
Right.
But the reality is then you're doing it in your own strength.
Yeah. And the cool thing about that awareness is that, because you may never, some of you may be in this position, like you may never get the closure that you desire.
Yeah.
Like you may never get to have that spouse or that friend, that hurt you. You may never get to have that experience of like, let's talk and bring closure to all the things that we did to each other, right? You may never get that. In fact, like you may never speak or see that person again, or be in that environment again. And it's so easy to dive into like offense, and that offense turns into bitterness and resentment. And you know what resentment and bitterness is? It's like you're drinking poison, and you're expecting the other person to die.
Right.
So what is hurt in this situation when there's no opportunity for closure and reconciliation, because God is about restoration and reconciliation, and he will do that. And there are moments where that's exactly what's going to happen, but there are moments where, like, gosh, you're stuck and you're drinking poison and you're bitter and you're festering in your own poo, because it's like, sorry, it's like a graphic one.
Maybe.
Vomit. Yeah. and it's really more damaging to you,
Yes.
But the cool thing about God's redemption and grace is that you don't even need to have the other person's involvement to get closure. You just need to own, like, maybe the part that you played in that toxic relationship or toxic encounter, and then God is so gracious that the finished work of the cross is enough, like you go to him, you get counseling, you get like help, wherever you get that. Like there's healing involved, because the thing is, like, when you don't, create that your own closure, like now you have the opportunity to create that your own closure by doing everything in your power to get the healing that you need with the area that you had responsibility for. And one of the ways, I know this is pretty common, one of the ways to do that is forgiveness.
Right.
I think there's a level of forgiveness that you forgive yourself and forgive the other person or the other party involved. And then now, once you let go of all the villains in your story,
right,
everybody that you can ever blame, all the villains, including yourself,
right,
then now you are free to not take the poison anymore. And now you're free to reclaim who you are, your authentic self, the way God has created you to be. And you begin to go through that step of healing and wholeness, because there are people on the other side of your healing and the other side of your obedience that are waiting for you to exist in your most authentic self in God.
Right.
So
right. And I love what you're saying there, because basically what you're saying, you're saying a phrase that I love to say a lot, is like, people are waiting for you on the other side of your risk. Okay. And it's risky to be obedient. It's risky to choose love over reaction.
Yes.
How do I respond in love over reaction? And that's so key, because here's the thing. If somebody hurts you, it's because they haven't transitioned into that place. Doesn't make them a bad person. It means that they're on a maturing journey. And like, the people that we're around mirror us a lot. And the reason, if we're around toxic people, chances are there's some toxicity in your own life that you keep rubbing and get attracted to in that. And so for you to move past that, to move on, we have to do that inner work. We have to do that personal confrontation and look past the pain by dealing with the pain.
Yes.
We got to deal with that pain, like she's talking about, like forgiveness.
I gotta get in there.
Yeah, and you're like, why would I need to forgive myself? Well, one of the biggest reasons why we'd forgive ourselves is internally we're allowing ourselves to keep being in a cycle around toxic people. Yeah. And so we have to forgive ourselves and release ourselves for doing that, a part of our process of moving forward. Yeah. And so, I can keep talking about this topic, and maybe we'll do a part 3, or we'll jump into why do people hurt people?
Yes, like, that could be a part 3.
I'm excited about that. I want to do that one, because that one's because that's like, why?
Yeah.
But I think as we kind of end this, I want to bring some clarity on one thought, and just leave you with this to see where you've noticed this in your own life. I've been in a lot of environments. I've worked for a lot of ministries, nonprofits, etc., organizations, and I've noticed that love isn't a simple thing. It's very complicated. It requires you to mature for a reason, to learn things. And I've been in environments, and I've stayed in toxic environments because it looked like they were doing love, but internally they weren't being love. And there's a concept here that God really challenged me on in our own relationship. And that's where I've really been able to grow in this the most, because, in a married relationship, you're together all the time.
Yes.
Is this, there's a difference between what you say and how you say it.
Yes.
So somebody could be doing the act of love, but they're not carrying the heart of love.
Yeah.
And I've noticed so many times, and this is where I've been confused, where I'm seeing the act of love.
Sure.
Maybe they're being generous, but the way they're being generous is controlling, manipulative. It's self-protecting.
Yeah.
And it's like I've stayed in environments and in relationships codependently because I see their actions, but I keep experiencing this thing. Their heart is not really at a place to match the care that's needed for me as an individual. And so what does that look like for me? I mean, I would be doing the acts of love, but because I hadn't walked through some of the forgiveness stuff, recognizing when resentment is starting to build up and how to, what I call, vent it.
Yeah.
Right? Resentment means holding on to anger. And that's a great topic to go into, is what is Christian anger, because Christ got angry,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
How am I
That's good.
venting that anger so that I can carry the heart of love instead of fear, self-protection?
Yeah.
For me, because I'm more of a agreeable personality, my pastoral heart, my helpful heart, I haven't had permission to vent anger or know how to in the past.
Yeah.
And so it created this codependency and passive aggression.
Right.
So passive aggression gets created when you're not venting anger properly. You're doing the act of generosity and love,
Sure.
but internally you're not releasing that love
Yeah.
through that act. And
Yeah.
people feel it
Yeah.
and they experience it. And so that can be confusing. So I just want to encourage you, wherever you're at in your journey, if you need what Lindsay was talking about, need support, you need someone to be a mirror and to be with you in your journey. I want you to know you are worth it.
Yes.
And you are valuable. Christ didn't die for you to mistreat yourself, to neglect yourself, to ignore who you are, to not hold some of that love for yourself so that it can do its work to authentically come through those actions that you're doing in love.
Yeah.
And so we want to say, hey, we're here for you.
Yes.
We have a phenomenal program called Kingdomized One that has just been transforming lives. We're about a month into this one right now. We'll be starting up again in the fall, so be watching out for that if you're interested in doing that. One-on-ones, if you just need to get in, just have something help support working on with your heart. But
yeah.
Any final thoughts?
I mean, just, obviously we're doing the Kingdomized One, but we've had two group sessions so far, and the feedback that we've gotten from our students are like, I'm ready to do this now, I'm gonna jump in here. And it's because of the level of freedom, like when you're in that place, like, like we invite you to not do it alone, even if it's a one-on-one, or if you join our program, like it's a fairly smaller amount of people, because we want it to be more intentional, in your journey. And so it's really something like I'm also getting touched by our program. So anyway, if you want to get on our wait list for the next one in the fall, like, please feel free to email us so we can have your information and say, like, we'll let you know when it's starting.
So info@coilcoaching.com, or go on our website and reach out to us through there.
And if you're listening to this like right away, the Coils will be in North Dakota, in Dickinson, North Dakota, in June 2nd and 3rd for a conference. It's called Make Room. So if you are in any of our social media, like, there will be a post about that. So if you're in the area, you're in there near Dickinson, and you can drive 2 hours, 3 hours, like, we would love to see you there.
So bless you guys. Let's you want to go just pray for everybody, just wrap the time up.
Holy Spirit, we just thank you for this time. I seal everything in their hearts, like, seal all of the things that we have talked about. And I pray for people's hearts who are listening and have been listening. And I thank you that the soil of their hearts and the soil of their spirits would become so good for this next season, and the seed of healing, and the seed of just the wholeness that's available for them. So we just pray for just this massive encounter with the Lord, even after listening to this. And so we bless you guys in Jesus' name.
Amen. And until next time, love you guys, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.